It was late evening in a small dusty town off Route 17, the kind of place where the wind carried stories through the hum of gas pumps and the glow of flickering neon lights. The gas station was nearly empty except for a black woman named Naomi Carter, a nurse finishing her third 12-hour shift. Her eyes were tired, her heart heavier than the old sedan she drove, but her soul still held warmth, that kind of quiet kindness the world often overlooks. She stood at Pump 7, watching her dollar counter stop at $9.42, not enough to fill her tank, but enough to get her home to her son. As she clicked the nozzle back, she noticed a man across from her, massive, leather-clad, his face half hidden beneath a scruffy beard and a "Hell's Angels" patch stitched boldly on his jacket. His Harley rumbled low, the gas meter blinking, card declined, on the small screen. He cursed under his breath, patting his pockets, pulling out a battered wallet, and shaking his head. Naomi could have ignored it, anyone else would have. The stories people told about bikers like him weren't gentle ones. But something in his eyes, that flicker of embarrassment, that quiet ache of pride, stopped her. Without a word, she stepped forward, inserted her own card into his pump, and pressed the green button. The biker turned, startled. "Ma'am, what are you?" he began, his deep voice rough like gravel. Naomi just smiled softly. "Gas is expensive. You looked like you needed it more than I did." For a moment, the world froze, the rumble of the bike, the buzz of the lights, the ache of a long day, all vanished. The man stared at her like she'd just done something unthinkable. "You don't even know me," he said. "Don't have to," she replied. "We all need help sometimes." He opened his mouth, maybe to protest, maybe to thank her, but she was already walking back to her car. Her old sedan coughed to life and rolled off into the dark, leaving him standing there under the neon hum, staring at the pump like it had just taught him something about grace. That night, Naomi got home to her small apartment where her 8-year-old son Eli waited up, coloring by the lamp. "You're late again, Mama," he said with sleepy eyes. "I know, baby. But guess what?" she said, kissing his forehead. "We made it through another day." She didn't tell him about the biker. To her, it was just one more small good deed in a world that often forgot to be kind. But miles away, that same biker, Rex Dalton, known on the road as Bear, sat in a run-down bar with a dozen other men in leather. He couldn't shake the memory of the woman at Pump 7. The world he lived in didn't deal in kindness. Loyalty, respect, fear, yes. But kindness? That was rare. "What's got you so quiet, Bear?" one of his brothers asked. Rex took a sip of whiskey, staring into the glass. "Met someone today," he muttered. "A woman. Paid for my gas when my card didn't work." The men laughed, slapped the table, made jokes, but Rex didn't join in. By sunset, Naomi returned home, tired as always, when she noticed something strange. The street was louder than usual, the deep thunder of engines echoing in the distance. Eli peeked out the window, eyes wide. "Mama, look," he said. Dozens of bikers turned onto their street, leather jackets glinting under the dying sun, engines growling like thunder. Neighbors came out, afraid, whispering. Naomi froze on her porch, her heart racing. The front row stopped right in front of her small house. Rex removed his helmet, his eyes soft but determined. "Ma'am," he called out, his voice booming but gentle. "You probably don't remember me. Pump 7. Yesterday." Naomi blinked, realization dawning. "You," she whispered. "You didn't have to," Rex raised a hand. "No, ma'am. You didn't have to either. But you did. And that meant something to me, to all of us." Behind him, dozens of bikers nodded, some holding helmets over their hearts. Then, to Naomi's disbelief, they began unloading boxes from the backs of their bikes, groceries, toys, gas cards, even envelopes of cash. "We heard you've been helping folks around town," Rex said. You've been giving when you ain't got much yourself. So we thought it's about time someone gives back. Naomi stood there, tears streaming down her face. The same woman who'd given a stranger $10 in gas was now surrounded by men society feared, offering her more kindness than she'd ever known. Eli ran down the steps, hugging Rex's leg. "Are you angels?" the boy asked innocently. Rex smiled. "Something like that, kid." As the sun set behind them, the whole neighborhood watched in silence. What started as one small act of grace had set off a chain reaction of compassion. Naomi didn't know what to say, just whispered, "Thank you," over and over. Rex looked at her, his voice steady. "You showed us that kindness still exists, even for people like us. We're just returning the favor." And with that, the angels roared their engines once more, saluting her before disappearing down the road, leaving behind the smell of gasoline, the hum of engines, and a woman forever changed. Naomi stood there, her son in her arms, smiling through tears. "See, baby," she whispered. "Kindness always comes back." The days that followed the rumble on Naomi Carter's street felt like a dream wrapped in disbelief. For the first time in years, her little house didn't feel small anymore, it felt full. Full of laughter, full of warmth, full of reminders that she wasn't invisible. The groceries they'd left filled her shelves, the envelopes of cash paid off months of overdue bills. Her son Eli was the happiest she'd seen him in years. He bragged at school, saying, "My mom helped bikers, and they helped us back." The teachers smiled politely, thinking it was just a child's imagination. But Naomi knew the truth. Yet even with the quiet blessings left behind, something in her heart wouldn't rest. Kindness like that didn't just happen, it carried weight, a story. A reason. And deep down, she knew this wasn't the last time she'd see those men. 3 days later, she was proven right. It was Saturday morning, and she was in her backyard hanging laundry when she heard the low thunder of engines again. Not one or two this time, dozens. Her heart leaped into her throat. She turned to see the same familiar line of Harleys rolling slowly down her street, chrome glinting in the sunlight. Neighbors peeked through curtains, dogs barked, and the ground trembled slightly with the rhythm of their arrival. But this time, Rex wasn't in front, he was in the middle of the line, flanked by 2 older men with commanding presence. The convoy stopped, and Rex dismounted, removing his helmet, walking up the dirt path to her fence. Naomi's breath caught, she didn't know whether to be scared, curious, or grateful all over again. "Morning, ma'am," Rex said with a small grin. "Told the boys about your coffee last time we were here, and now they're all jealous." She laughed nervously. "I didn't make you any coffee," she said. Rex winked. "Guess we're here to fix that, then." He motioned to the others, and within minutes, bikers began unloading lumber, paint cans, and toolboxes. Naomi blinked. "What are you doing?" she asked, bewildered. One of the older men, with a white beard and calm, wise eyes, stepped forward. "Name's Hawk, ma'am. Rex told us what you did for him. Said you gave without expecting anything back. That kind of heart don't come around much. So, we're giving your house a little love." Before she could protest, 2 men were already fixing the squeaky porch steps, another was painting the faded door, and a few were installing a new mailbox. Naomi tried to stop them, but Hawk gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let us, sister. You gave us a reason to remember who we are, not just what the world calls us." She didn't argue after that. She just stood there, wiping tears she didn't even realize had formed, watching these leather-clad men work like an army of angels in denim and chrome. Rex kept glancing at her as he hammered boards and carried lumber, his expression softer than the reputation sewn across his jacket. There was something about Naomi that pulled at the part of him he thought was long dead, the part that still believed in goodness, forgiveness, family. Later that afternoon, when the repairs were nearly done, Rex found Naomi sitting on the porch steps, holding 2 mugs of coffee. He sat beside her, taking one without a word. For a while, they just sat there listening to the distant rumble of laughter and tools. Finally, Rex broke the silence. You ever wonder why people stop believing in kindness? Naomi looked at him. Because they've been hurt by it, she said softly. Because the world teaches them to expect something ugly behind every good thing. Rex nodded slowly. That's the truth. I spent half my life expecting people to spit when they saw my jacket. But you just saw a man who needed gas. Naomi smiled faintly. Everyone deserves a second chance, even when they don't believe it themselves. There was something in her voice that caught his attention, a sadness, a memory hiding behind her calm. He looked at her, curious. You talk like you've been through a few second chances yourself. She hesitated, eyes on the horizon. Maybe more than a few, she whispered. I wasn't always this woman you see now. I used to be angry, lost. My husband died 5 years ago. Car accident. Drunk driver. I hated the world after that. Hated everyone who reminded me of pain. But one day, I realized hate didn't feed my boy. It didn't heal me. So I started helping where I could. It's all I have left to give. Rex looked at her in silence, the sound of wind and motorcycles filling the pause between them. He clenched his jaw, eyes darkening. You said drunk driver? She nodded slowly. Why? Rex exhaled sharply, standing up. Because I was that man once, he said quietly. Years ago. Before I wore this jacket. Before I met the angels. I took a life because I couldn't face my own. Naomi's hand froze midair, the mug trembling slightly. She began, but he cut her off, his voice trembling with guilt. It wasn't your husband. But it could have been. Every time I think about it, I see the faces of the people I hurt. That's why I stopped running. That's why I ride now, not to escape, but to remember. The confession hung heavy in the air. Naomi's eyes filled with tears, not of anger, but of sorrow. She reached out, touching his hand gently. Then maybe you're meant to be here, she said softly. Maybe you came back because forgiveness doesn't find you until you start forgiving yourself. The sun began to dip low, casting a golden light over the house as the bikers finished their work. They'd painted her front door a deep crimson red and planted flowers along the walkway. Eli came running out, squealing with joy, showing off a tiny toy motorcycle one of the men had given him. Laughter filled the air again, light and genuine. As the last rays of the sun touched the road, Hawk gathered the group, clapping Rex on the shoulder. She's special, son. Don't let this be the last time we ride for someone who matters. Rex nodded. It won't be. When the roar of engines faded into the distance that night, Naomi stood on her porch, watching the dust settle. For the first time since her husband's death, she didn't feel alone. Her house wasn't just repaired, it was reborn. The next morning, she woke up to a note taped to her door. It was scrawled in rough handwriting.